There are people out there that are taking this situation extremely seriously, people that are white, people like ESPN's Kirk Herbstreit, who I had no idea would ever get this emotional, particularly when it came to racial injustice. I want you to have a listen to this because I find it interesting that ESPN's Kirk Herbstreit had this kind of passion, and actually I give him credit for that. For men are chastised sometimes in society for not being masculine enough, for not showing, for crying. I think it should be the opposite. I think you are a man when you do that because you're not afraid to show your emotions. So this is Kirk Herbstreit live on ESPN breaking down while talking about racial injustice. Have a listen to this.
The black community is hurting. If you've listened and the word empathy and compassion over these last 4 months, how do you listen to these stories and not feel pain and not want to help? You know what I mean? It's like wearing a hoodie and putting your hands at 10 and 2. Oh God, I better look out because I'm wearing Nike gear. Like what? What are we talking about? And so you can't relate to that if you're white, but you can listen and you can try to help because this is not okay. It's just not.
It's not.
And we got to do better, man. We got to like lock arm in arm and be together in a football locker room. That stuff is gone.
I tell you, that's very powerful stuff. And I give him a lot of credit for not being afraid to share his emotions. This is a guy who played college football. This is a guy who spent a lot of time around minorities, certainly on the football field. And I know he has a lot of friends, people of color. And he's absolutely right. Some of these situations are not okay. We need to be together. And the only way we're going to be together is if we can agree on the most basic of things, that racism should never be acceptable under any circumstance, whether it's law enforcement, and racist people should be called out. We should all agree on that. We should also all agree that police brutality and treating somebody differently because of the color. Listen, police brutality is bad no matter what the color of your skin is that they're doing it to. It should never be acceptable. It's wrong. We should all agree that there are times in society where black people are not treated the same as white people. But on the other side of things, we should also agree that, listen, man, you got to comply with police. What Kirk Herbstreit is saying is what I just said, basically. And he's absolutely right. We need to lock arms, and it's kind of a metaphor.
He's also implying that if you get pulled over and you have your hands at 10 and 2 and you are complying with police officers, that you are still at risk of having something happen to you.
So there are cases where that has
Brian,
happened.
That's very, very anecdotal. There may be a couple of cases like that a year, but it's not enough to say that message that Kirk Herbstreit just gave, and he gave it very emotionally. That's literally what it's saying. If you're African American or if you're black and you're wearing a Nike hoodie and you're sitting in your car and you get pulled over and your hands are at 10 and 2, you still have to worry. That is the wrong message to give, Brian. He not once did he mention compliance, not once. In fact, he's implying that if you do comply, you are still at risk because of the color of your skin.
Okay, so let me give you an example. It's called the Trayvon Martin case. If you recall, Trayvon Martin was wearing a hoodie. He had Skittles.
He was not in his car at 10 to 2.
We need a buzzer again because I'm trying to make my point now, and I was just interrupted again. So I think I'm up 8-0 now. I haven't interrupted you once the entire show. I'm just saying. Haven't interrupted you once. You've interrupted me now 8 times. Maybe more, but I gave you a break on a couple of the buzzers. But anyway, going back to what I just said, you don't have to be in a car to be racially profiled. Trayvon Martin would be alive today if he wasn't black. Trayvon Martin was
What?
Let me explain,
Trayvon
please.
Martin would be alive today
play the buzzer.
if he didn't attack George Zimmerman.
Play the buzzer again. Okay, now 10-0. The reason why George Zimmerman called the police on Trayvon Martin was not because Trayvon Martin was doing anything wrong. He said he was suspicious. The only thing Trayvon Martin was doing was wearing a hoodie, walking in a neighborhood with Skittles in his hand. He wasn't on private property. If Trayvon Martin was white, George Zimmerman would not have called the police. George Zimmerman made the assumption that he might have been up to no good because he was black, because maybe there were a couple black people in his neighborhood that were up to no good. So I repeat what I just said. Trayvon Martin would still be alive today. Now, I don't blame Trayvon Martin for doing what he did. He was being followed by George Zimmerman. He was scared. In fact, he was on the phone with his girlfriend. He told his girlfriend that he was scared, that somebody was following him. This is a young kid, a young teenager who had somebody following him. Now, yes, in a perfect world, in a perfect scenario, I wish that Trayvon Martin didn't start a physical altercation. But the bottom line is the whole reason why George Zimmerman called 911 and was following George Zimmerman was because he was wearing a hoodie.
Trayvon Martin,
was following Trayvon Martin was because he was a black young man in the neighborhood who, by the way, wasn't doing anything wrong.
And houses had been broken into. He
had nothing to do with it.
He was neighborhood watch.
He had nothing to do with it.
He was watching the neighborhood.
So you're justifying George Zimmerman.
No, I'm just telling you what he was doing.
Okay.
But here's the deal. If Trayvon Martin did not physically attack George Zimmerman, he would not have died that night.
So you don't think he called...
And that has nothing to do with the color of his skin.
So you don't think...
That has everything to do with his behavior.
So you don't think... So why did George Zimmerman call the police then?
Because
nothing to do with his skin color?
Again, I don't know. I have no idea if his skin color factored in. But I'm not going to say that it definitely did. Because again, I don't know. Neither do you, Brian.
You just said it yourself. That's some black... No, I do have an idea because I covered the case.
I said pieces or homes there had been broken into
by black people.
And George, I don't know. I don't know.
I do know.
I have no idea who was breaking into those homes. Brian.
Let me give you some.
I just know he was neighborhood watch.
So let me give you
he
some.
He called the police. The police recommended not to follow him. He got out of the car. He did not listen to the police. He did follow. He wasn't closely following, but he was following him.
Yes.
And Trayvon Martin turned around and attacked him.
Okay, so let me give you some facts.
Place, Brian.
Okay.
So do you.
No, yeah, but you don't have all the facts. I do. I covered this case. This is George Zimmerman's own words. He said that there were black people, that's the word he used, black people that were breaking into homes in his neighborhood. He didn't say people. He said black people when interviewed by the police. He saw a black young kid walking in a neighborhood, by the way, doing absolutely nothing wrong, wearing a hoodie. There's nothing wrong with wearing a hoodie, and it was raining outside. He saw a black kid wearing a hoodie. He absolutely racially profiled him. 150%. It's not a debate. It's not an argument. George Zimmerman is on the record. Now, why are we talking about Trayvon Martin? Why are we talking about George Zimmerman? Because what Kirk Herbstreit was talking about on ESPN, that you could be a black man in America and you could be racially profiled and you could be dead because of the color of your skin, regardless of whether Trayvon Martin shouldn't have started a physical altercation or not. The young kid was scared. He was being followed, and George Zimmerman should never have called 911. He was racially profiled because he was black, period.
The reason we're bringing up Trayvon Martin is because Kirk Herbstreit implied that if you comply with police and you're sitting in your vehicle and you get pulled over on 10 to 2, you still are at risk of losing your life. And now you're using this very, very disconnected example as reason to yes, it is.
No,
was Trayvon Martin in his car? Was George Zimmerman a police officer?
Okay.
No, Brian.
You don't have to be in your car to be a victim of racism and systemic racism. You don't have to be a victim in a car. By the way, tell that to the Philando Castillo's family. Okay? Tell that to his family.
Again, I'm not suggesting it does. I know it does happen.
Okay, so why can't we just say it does happen and leave it at that?
Anecdotally, it does take place, but it doesn't happen. It isn't a thing that happens on a widespread, consistent basis where someone who has the type of following that Kirk Herbstreit does should say, yes, if you are African American and you are in your car and you are complying with police officer, your life is still at risk. That is a dangerous thing to tell African Americans nationwide, Brian.
So that's all I'm saying. So what have we learned here in the last
Because the situations that we've talked about, Rayshard Brooks, Jacob Blake, all these situations, there has been one common denominator, and it's not the color of the skin. It is the fact that there was no police compliance. And Kirk Herbstreit is implying that if you do comply, police officers, they want to hurt you. They don't have your best interests in mind.
Okay, so first of all,
that to me is very similar to LeBron James saying that every single time you leave your house, you are hunted. We are hunted as black people when we leave our homes every single day.
First of all,
it's dangerous rhetoric.
Okay,
and it leads to division.
Okay, so first of all, you've criticized Kirk Herbstreit's comments. You've defended George Zimmerman in the last 5 minutes.
I have not defended George Zimmerman.
Okay, if I could just finish.
I'm just saying if Trayvon didn't attack him, he wouldn't have died that night.
Okay,
that's all I'm saying.
Play the buzzer again. Now 11-0. I let you finish. That's another
you keep saying
interruption.
things that I'm not doing, and so I'm correcting you.
He's still going, so keep playing the buzzer until he stops talking, please.
Okay.
11-0. All right, thank you. I haven't interrupted you once the entire show. Just saying, it's 11-0. It's not even close. I've shown patience. With that being said, we need to all agree that racism exists. We need to all agree that whether it happens in a car, and by the way, last I checked, George Floyd was murdered after he was on the ground, on his stomach, handcuffed. At that moment, when Chauvin put his knee over George Floyd's neck, George Floyd was subdued. He was on his stomach and handcuffed. There was no noncompliance in the moment when Chauvin decided to do what he did. So, yes, I agree. And I try to be fair on both sides. I wish other people would do the same. People need to comply. People need to do as they're told, whether they agree or disagree with the police officer's actions. Yes, I agree with that. Somebody who's willing to attack both sides for people who don't comply. It's just stupidity at its finest. But with that being said, we also need to call out racism. We need to call out bad policing. It happens on both sides of the aisle. I don't care whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. We all should agree on that. And that's how this segment started. We all can't agree on the simplest of all things, that police brutality should never be, I guess, tolerated. Racism should never be tolerated. Noncompliance should never be tolerated. But you won't hear that. You won't hear that from anybody. If you listen to right-wing...
I just told you Donald Trump said that, Brian.
Okay, yeah, he said there are bad apples.
Yeah,
so
he said there's bad apples and there's chokers.
Yeah, okay. So he compared...
And bad apple applied to the Derek Chauvin situation, which clearly was a case of, at a minimum, bad policing. We don't know if race was involved.
Okay, so let me be clear.
And as far as the high-pressure situation that the officer that shot Jacob Blake was in, that would imply the word choker. So Donald Trump has actually brought up on both sides.
Okay, so let me finish my thought, but I'll respond to what you just said. We have tens of millions of people who are protesting throughout the country, and they want to be treated as equals. They want, racial justice, so to speak. All this going on, and probably more racial divide we've had certainly in my lifetime. And you have the President of the United States who made a comment and called some police officers chokers and bad apples and compared it to missing a 3-foot putt. Now, hold on. If I could finish. So if you want to compare, if you want to think that's comparable and that's enough for you when it comes to the racial injustice in this country and all those people that are protesting and the leader of the free world making a couple brief 20-second comments on it, he's made more comments about Saturday Night Live. If you think him saying, well, there's a few bad apples out there and they're chokers, and he compares it to missing a 3-foot putt, and you think that is legitimate, and that's all we need to hear from the president when it comes to race in this country, then I really feel sorry for you, because I think the president needs to do a little bit more than that. He needs to say a little bit more than that, and he needs to show a little bit more leadership. Now, in no way, shape, or form am I saying he should say the majority of cops are bad cops or the majority of cops are racist. No, that's not what I'm talking about. You need to go deeper into this and find out and listen to others. And the president has not done that. Just saying there are some bad apples out there and saying they're chokers is not enough when you have tens of millions of Americans out there that are angry.
Tim Scott, actually, African-American, the one that was followed, I think, 10 times in the last couple of years, he actually introduced a bill for police reform.
What does that have to do with Donald Trump?
The Democrats turned down immediately, Brian. So Republican politicians have made efforts to institute police reform. And I agree there needs to be police reform nationwide. There needs to be more. We had this conversation with Steve Grammas. That was an exceptional conversation. There needs to be mental health evaluations. There needs to be body cameras on every single person. There needs to be better training. I believe that police officers need to be paid more money, and they need to be in better physical shape so that if someone does not comply, like Rayshard Brooks, if Rayshard Brooks wasn't as big and strong as he was, and those police officers were more capable of being able to stop him, then I don't think he would be dead at this time. So I think a lot of things need to change. But the problem is Kirk Herbstreit is implying that police officers nationwide are interested in hurting you because of the color of your skin, even if you comply. And that is just not the case. That is just not the case.
Okay, so again, I just brought up Donald Trump, and then you brought up a bunch of other things that had nothing to do with Donald Trump. All I was simply saying is that when you have tens of millions of people that are protesting, you want the leader of the free world to show some leadership. Yes, he said there were some bad apples out there, and then he talked about chokers, comparing missing a 3-foot putt. All I'm simply saying is there are many people out there that would like the president to address this issue head on. What you just talked about, whether it be the body cameras or police reform, we have not heard the president of the United States extensively talk about these things, and that is exactly what I am talking about. We want more leadership from the president of the United States, particularly when we have this much racial divide in this country. Period. Simple as that. All right, so it's been a crazy sports weekend, right? We got NBA, NHL. We haven't even talked Vegas